The cold is the first thing she truly feels. Not the anticipatory chill of a bride, but the deep, invasive cold of dread. It seeps through the ridiculous layers of Italian silk and French lace, a dampness that has nothing to do with the manicured gardens outside and everything to do with the sterile ballroom she stands in. The dress is a cage of boning and pearls. Gideon had called it exquisite, a perfect frame for his perfect wife. He'd used the word asset once in a moment of unguarded honesty, and the sound had echoed in the hollow space behind her ribs ever since. An asset. That's what she is tonight. Isadora smooths a hand over the satin encasing her hip, the fabric whispering a lie of softness. She feels anything but soft. She feels brittle, like a pane of glass about to shatter. The noise of the reception is a physical weight. The clinking of champagne flutes, the low thrum of a string quartet, the murmur of voices discussing stock portfolios and summering in the Hamptons. It's a language she has learned to speak, but never to understand. Her own voice feels like a foreigner in her throat. She catches her reflection in the polished surface of a grand piano. A pale woman with haunted eyes trapped in a confection of white. The woman doesn't look happy. She looks curated, placed, a piece of very expensive, very fragile art. There you are. Gideon's voice is as smooth and hard as the marble floors. He slides an arm around her waist, his touch proprietary. Cool, he smells of expensive cologne and ambition. Smiling for the cameras, my love, he murmurs, his lips close to her ear, but his eyes scanning the crowd, forever networking. She forces the corners of her mouth to lift. It's a painful, unfamiliar, muscular arrangement. Of course, he gives her a squeeze. It is not affectionate. It is a reminder of their bargain. His world of glittering power and influence was impenetrable. He needed a wife with an impeccable, quiet background, one who would grace his table and never ever cause a scandal. She needed an escape from the suffocating pity and whispers of her old life, from the ghost of her grandfather's failing farm, and the fresh, gaping wound of a future she could never have. The doctor's words still ring in her ears sometimes, a clinical pronouncement that had stripped the color from her world. Scarring, complications. I'm very sorry, Miss Hale, but conception will be highly improbable. Barren. The old, ugly word had clung to her like a shroud. When she'd told Gideon, bracing for the rejection, the end of their calculated courtship, he had simply nodded. A flicker of something, relief, had crossed his face before being smoothed away. It's for the best, he'd said, adjusting his tie. Less complicated. No messy fights over inheritance. It keeps things clean. Clean, yes. Their life was to be very, very clean and empty. A wave of nausea rolls through her. I need some air, she whispers, pulling away from his hold before he can object. He lets her go easily, already turning to greet a senator. She is an asset, but a temporarily self-sufficient one. She pushes through a set of heavy glass doors and steps onto a stone terrace. The air here is different. It's cool and alive, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine from the vast, dark forest that borders the estate. The manicured lawn stops abruptly 100 yards away, surrendering to a wall of ancient trees that seem to swallow the light. It looks like a different world, a truer one. She leans against the stone balustrade, the cold of it a welcome shock against her palms. She closes her eyes, breathing in the wildness. For a moment, the suffocating perfume of lilies and lies recedes. She thinks of her grandfather, a man who smelled of soil and sunshine, who taught her the names of the constellations. He would hate this place. He would hate the man she just married. A twig snaps in the darkness beyond the lawn. Her eyes fly open. She peers into the gloom, her heart suddenly beating a frantic, heavy rhythm against the cage of her ribs. Probably just a deer or a fox. The estate was known for its carefully managed wildlife. But the feeling that washes over her isn't one of simple surprise. It's primal, a cold spike of pure, undiluted fear. The feeling of being watched, hunted. She takes a step back toward the doors, toward the false, bright safety of the party. A blur of motion erupts from the tree line. It's too fast to be a deer, too large. A shape of pure, condensed night, moving with an impossible silent speed across the grass. It's not a man. It's not an animal she can name. It is simply predator. She has no time to scream. One moment, she is on the cold stone terrace, a bride in white. The next, she is airborne. An immense pressure envelops her, a vice of muscle and heat. The scent is overwhelming. Rain-soaked earth, ozone, and a raw, musky animal scent that fills her lungs and suffocates her thoughts. The world tilts, a dizzying collage of dark sky and darker trees. She feels the rough texture of fur against her cheek, the shocking strength of the arm. No, the limb that holds her. It isn't cruel, but it is absolute, unyielding. A growl rumbles against her so deep it feels like it's vibrating through her own bones. It's not a sound of aggression. It's a sound of possession. The lights of the reception hall, the prison of her new life, shrink behind her with terrifying speed. She is being stolen, spirited away into the deep, deep dark woods. Her pristine, clean, empty life is over. And as the blackness of the forest swallows them whole, her last coherent thought is not of Gideon. It's a single, hysterical question. What in God's name is happening? Consciousness returns in fragments. A scent first. Wood smoke, clean and sharp. Damp stone. And that same pervasive musk of wild animal. Then a sound. The gentle crackle of a fire. And something else. A low, rhythmic breathing nearby. Steady. Deep. Isadora keeps her eyes closed, a survival instinct she didn't know she possessed. She takes inventory. She's lying on something soft. Furs, maybe? She's warm. Someone has covered her. Her wedding dress is still on, but it's torn at the hem and stained with dirt. The cage is broken. She dares to open her eyes a fraction. She's in a cave, or maybe a cabin built into the rock. The walls are rough-hewn stone, the ceiling a dark expanse of timber. A small, contained fire burns in a stone hearth, casting flickering orange light across the space. And there, by the fire, sits her abductor. Her breath catches in her throat, a small, choked sound. It's a wolf, but that word is an insult to the creature before her. It is monstrously large, its shoulders as high as a man's waist. Its fur is the color of a starless midnight, thick and coarse. It sits on its haunches with a stillness that is utterly unnerving, its head raised, watching her. And its eyes, they are the color of amber, of old whiskey held up to the light, and they are intelligent, terrifyingly so. There is no mindless savagery in that gaze. There is thought, There is awareness. She sees a dark, matted patch on its flank, a long, deep gash that oozes sluggishly. It's injured. The thought registers with a strange, clinical detachment. Fear, cold and sharp, finally cuts through the fog of disorientation. This is a beast, a monster. It stole her. It could kill her in a second, tear her apart. She should scream, she should run. But then she hears it. Another sound, cutting through the crackle of the fire. A faint, mewling cry. It's the sound of a baby. Isadora pushes herself up on her elbows, her gaze darting around the small, firelit space. There, in the corner, nestled in a hollowed-out log lined with the softest-looking pelts, is a bundle. And from it comes that tiny, distressed sound again. Her heart does a painful, wrenching lurch. A baby. Here, with this creature. Logic ceases to exist. The carefully constructed walls of her fear, the instinct for self-preservation, it all just crumbles. It is replaced by a force far older, far more powerful. A deep, aching need that has been carved into her very soul by its absence. The baby cries again, a thin, hungry wail that slices right through her. She looks from the infant to the wolf. The great beast does not move. Its amber eyes are still fixed on her, but the intensity has changed. It is no longer just watching her. It is waiting. This is a test. She doesn't know how she knows, but she does. Her mind screams at her. It's a trap. Run. Get away from the monster. But her body is already moving. She swings her legs over the side of the fur-covered pallet she was on, her ruined silk dress rustling. The floor is cold stone. She rises, her movements slow, deliberate. She will not be the person who walks away. She will not be Gideon, coolly assessing a situation for its complications. She will not be the doctors with their pitying, clinical gazes. She will not be the world that looked at her pain and turned its back. She will not leave a child to cry in the dark. Her entire life, she has been told she is fragile, delicate, broken. But in this moment, facing a monster in a cave with a crying child, she feels a core of steel solidify within her. She takes a step toward the makeshift crib. The wolf remains silent, a mountain of dark fur and watchful patience. She takes another. The air is thick with tension, with the smell of pine and wildness. She has crossed a threshold, not just in the room, but within herself. She reaches the hollowed log and looks down. The infant is tiny, wrapped in clean, soft wool. Its face is red and crumpled with distress. It can't be more than a few weeks old. A wave of impossible tenderness washes over her, so potent it makes her dizzy. Shh, she whispers, her voice raspy. It's okay. I'm here. She reaches down, her hands hesitating for only a second before she scoops the baby into her arms. The infant is light, warm, and real. It quiets almost instantly, its tiny head turning to burrow against her chest, seeking comfort, seeking life. The feeling of that small, trusting weight against her is a revelation. It fills a void she didn't even know was still there, a vast, echoing chamber of loss. She looks up, over the baby's head, at the wolf. Its amber eyes are still on her, but there is something new in them. Something that looks terrifyingly like approval. Her gaze falls on a small, neatly arranged pile near the hearth. A clay jug, a stack of clean-looking cloths, a small wooden bowl. It's as if they were left for her. The jug is filled with fresh, warm goat's milk. This beast, this kidnapper, had provided for the child. And for her, the world tilts on its axis again. Nothing makes sense. She sits on the floor, cradling the baby, and dips a cloth into the milk, gently offering it to the infant's searching mouth. He latches on, suckling weakly at first, then with more strength. As she feeds the child, her eyes drift back to the wolf's wounded flank. The gash is ugly. It needs to be cleaned. The thought is insane, suicidal. But the creature hasn't harmed her. It brought her here, to this strange sanctuary. It entrusted her with this child. It is hurt. After the baby is fed and burped and settled back into his warm nest, sleeping soundly, Isadora makes another choice. She finds a clean cloth and soaks it in the water from a skin pouch near the wall. She approaches the wolf. Her heart hammers against her ribs like a trapped bird. Every instinct is screaming. This is madness. She stops a foot away from it. "I'm not going to hurt you," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "You're hurt. Let me help." The wolf watches her, its head cocked. A low rumble starts in its chest. Fear lances through her, cold and sharp. She freezes, but the growl is not aggressive. It's questioning. It lowers its massive head and dips it once, a slow, deliberate nod. Then it shifts its weight, carefully lying down on its side, exposing the wound to her. An act of trust so profound it steals her breath. Trembling, she kneels beside it. The heat rolling off its body is immense, like a furnace. The smell of its fur is thick in her throat. She reaches out a shaking hand and gently, so gently, begins to clean the edges of the wound. The wolf flinches but does not move away. It lets her tend to it, its deep, amber eyes never leaving her face. Under her fingers, she feels the coarse texture of its fur, the powerful muscle beneath, the steady, rhythmic beat of its life. In the firelight of a wild cave, surrounded by stone and shadows, Isadora, the barren bride, tends to a monster and a child. And for the first time in a very long time, she doesn't feel broken at all. She feels necessary. The days blur into a strange, rhythmic peace. A new reality takes root in the small, firelit world of the cave. It is a life stripped down to its most essential elements: warmth, food, care. Sun rises and sets outside their stone sanctuary, marking time with shifting patterns of light at the entrance. A routine solidifies, unspoken but absolute. She wakes. She tends to the baby, who she has decided to call Orion in her mind. It's a good, strong name. A name her grandfather would have liked. She feeds him the goat's milk, which is replenished each morning in a fresh jug left silently at the cave's entrance while she sleeps. She changes him with the clean cloths that appear in the same mysterious fashion. She tends to the wolf. His wound is healing at an impossible rate. What should have taken weeks to close is already knitting itself together, the flesh clean and healthy. It's unnatural. Another piece of the puzzle that is her life now, a piece that she carefully sets aside without trying to solve. It's too big, too frightening to look at directly. The wolf is her silent companion, her guardian. She has named him too, in the privacy of her own thoughts. Zephyr. It feels right. It feels like him. He spends most of his time lying by the hearth, a mountain of dark fur and quiet vigilance. But he moves too. He will disappear for hours and return with a fresh rabbit or a brace of birds, leaving them near the supplies. He ensures they have wood for the fire. He is their provider, their protector, and he listens. At first, she only talks to Orion. She whispers stories to him as he sleeps, nonsense about constellations and brave knights. But her audience slowly expands. She finds herself talking to the silent wolf, her voice filling the quiet space. She talks because the silence is too heavy. She talks because she has been silent for too long. Gideon never liked the quiet, she tells Zephyr one afternoon, her voice soft as she rocks Orion in her arms. The wolf's amber eyes are fixed on her, his head resting on his paws. He said it was unproductive. There was always music playing, or the television droning on about the news. I think he was afraid of what he might hear if it ever stopped. She looks down at Orion's sleeping face, the perfect miniature curve of his lips. He didn't want children, she whispers, the confession a painful stone in her throat. When he found out I couldn't, he was relieved. He said it was perfect. Can you imagine? Calling something so broken perfect. A tear escapes and traces a cold path down her cheek. She doesn't wipe it away. The wolf, Zephyr, makes a soft noise in his throat, a low, guttural whine. He pushes himself up and pads silently over to her. He is enormous, looming over her where she sits on the floor. For a second, a flicker of the old fear returns. But he simply lowers his great head and nudges her hand with his wet nose. A gentle, insistent pressure, a wordless offering of comfort. She stares at him, her heart aching with a strange mix of gratitude and disbelief. This wild creature is showing her more compassion than her husband ever did. He doesn't even know I'm gone, she says, her voice thick. Not really. He knows his property is missing, his asset. He'll be angry about the scandal, the inconvenience, but he won't be worried about me. She lifts her free hand, and with a hesitation that feels monumental, she rests it on the wolf's massive head. His fur is thick and surprisingly soft beneath her palm. He doesn't pull away. Instead, he leans into her touch, a low rumble of something like a purr vibrating through his chest. A current, warm and startling, shoots up her arm. It's a shock of connection so profound, it makes her gasp. It feels like recognition, like coming home to a place she's never been. Fear is slowly, day by day, being replaced by something else. Comfort, a deep, abiding sense of safety she has never known. She sleeps soundly at night, curled under the furs, knowing the great wolf is on watch. She is safer here, in a cave with a beast, than she ever was in a mansion with a man. One evening, a storm breaks over the forest. Thunder rattles the very stones of the cave, and lightning flashes, illuminating the world outside in stark, momentary tableaus of silver and black. Orion, startled by the noise, begins to wail, a high, terrified sound that no amount of shushing can soothe. Isadora rocks him, paces with him, sings to him, but he only cries harder. Zephyr gets to his feet. He approaches them, and instead of stopping, he gently nudges Orion with his nose. The baby, shocked, stops crying mid-wail. His tear-filled eyes fix on the wolf's huge, dark face. The wolf licks Orion's tiny hand, a quick, soft rasp of his tongue. And Orion giggles, a tiny, gurgling bubble of a laugh. He reaches out a chubby fist and grabs a tuft of the wolf's fur, completely unafraid. Isadora stares, speechless. Zephyr lies down beside them, a patient living mountain of warmth and comfort. Orion, still clutching his handful of fur, quiets completely, his breathing evening out as he drifts back to sleep, safe and secure between the woman and the wolf. Isadora watches them, her heart feeling too large for her chest. This is impossible. None of this is possible. The healing, the intelligence, the gentleness. This is no ordinary wolf. The thought is no longer something she can push aside. It is a certainty, solid and terrifying and wondrous. She doesn't know what he is, but she knows he is hers, and she is his. In some way she cannot comprehend. They belong to each other, her, the wolf, and the child, a strange, broken little family in the heart of the storm. And as she leans her head back against the cool stone wall, her hand still resting on Zephyr's warm fur, she realizes with a jolt that she isn't hoping for rescue anymore. She is terrified it might come. The peace is shattered by the sound of progress. The growl of an engine, distant at first, then closer. The unnatural crunch of tires on forest floor. Then voices, men's voices, sharp with impatience and authority. They are close, too close. Ice floods Isadora's veins. Her first instinct is to grab Orion, to hide. She looks frantically around the cave, but there is nowhere to go. It is a sanctuary, but also a trap. She looks at Zephyr. He is already on his feet, standing at the mouth of the cave. He is no longer the gentle, quiet companion. He is every inch the predator she first saw. His body is rigid, coiled like a spring. A low, menacing growl rumbles in his chest, a sound that vibrates through the very air. The fur along his spine is raised, making him look even larger, more formidable. His lips are pulled back from his teeth in a silent, terrifying snarl. His amber eyes are flames. Isadora! The voice cuts through the forest sounds. It's Gideon. It's a sound of ownership, of fury, not concern. A figure appears at the tree line, stepping into the clearing before the cave. Gideon. His expensive suit is rumpled, his perfect hair disheveled. His face is a mask of thunderous rage. Behind him, two other men in dark security uniforms flank him, holding high-powered rifles. Isadora, for God's sake! Gideon shouts, his eyes finding her in the dim light of the cave entrance. His gaze sweeps over her torn, dirty dress, the rustic cave, the sleeping baby in the makeshift crib. Disgust and fury wore on his features. What is this? What fresh hell is this? Did some backwoods degenerate do this to you? He takes a step forward. Zephyr's growl deepens, a promise of violence. Gideon finally sees him. He stops dead, his face paling. What in the... Shoot it! He snaps at his men, not taking his eyes off the wolf. No! Isadora screams, her voice raw. She moves to stand slightly behind Zephyr's massive shoulder, a part of his defensive line. Don't! You don't understand! Gideon's eyes narrow, flicking from the wolf to her, then to the baby. A slow, ugly understanding dawns on his face, an assumption so vile it makes her stomach turn. I see, he says, his voice dripping with venom. Running off with some wild animal! Have you lost your mind? He takes another aggressive step. We are leaving. Now. We'll fix this. A story about amnesia, a brief traumatic kidnapping. I can salvage this, but you are coming with me. He lunges, reaching for her arm. It happens faster than she can process. Zephyr is a blur of black fury. He doesn't leap. He explodes from his position, a silent, deadly projectile of teeth and muscle. He hits Gideon square in the chest, sending him flying backward onto the forest floor with a grunt of pain and shock. The security men raise their rifles. "Don't shoot!" Isadora shrieks, but it's too late. A shot cracks through the air, deafeningly loud. Zephyr yelps, a sound of pure agony that rips through Isadora's heart. He stumbles, his front leg buckling. Another shot. He cries out again, but his momentum doesn't stop. He turns on the man who shot him, a force of primal rage. The man has no time to scream before the wolf is on him. The other guard panics, firing wildly. Isadora ducks back instinctively, shielding her head. She hears a pained cry, a thud, and then silence. A terrible ringing silence broken only by Orion, who has woken up and is now screaming in terror. Isadora forces herself to look. The two guards are down, one unmoving, the other groaning. Gideon is scrambling backward on the ground, his face a mess of terror and disbelief. And Zephyr. He is standing over the fallen men, his body heaving. His dark fur is slick with blood, not just from his enemies. There is a dark, wet patch high on his shoulder, and his front leg is held at an unnatural angle. He is swaying on his feet. He saved her. He fought for her. He is grievously injured for her. Gideon, seeing his chance, fumbles for the rifle dropped by one of his men. He gets it, his hands shaking as he clumsily raises the barrel, pointing it directly at Zephyr's heaving chest. "Filthy animal!" He spits, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and rage. Time slows down. Isadora sees the glint in Gideon's eye, the tightening of his finger on the trigger. She sees Zephyr, wounded and exhausted, unable to defend himself. In that instant, there is no choice. There is no thought. There is only a single, blazing certainty. She runs. She launches herself from the mouth of the cave, her torn dress flying around her, and throws her body in front of the wolf. She spreads her arms wide, a fragile human shield between the gun and the beast who protected her. "No!" she screams, her voice cracking with a power she has never known. "Stop! If you shoot him, you'll have to shoot me too." Gideon freezes, his eyes wide with utter shock. He is looking at her as if he's never seen her before. The timid, compliant woman he was going to mold into the perfect political wife is gone. In her place is a fierce, defiant stranger, protecting a monster. "Isadora, move," he says, his voice a harsh whisper. "No," she says, her own voice steady now, resolute. She doesn't look back at the wolf, but she can feel his heat, hear his ragged breathing right behind her. She is his only defense. "You will not hurt him." She holds Gideon's gaze, unflinching. In this moment, shielding this wounded creature with her own flesh and blood, she feels more whole, more powerful than she ever has in her life. She has made her stand. She has chosen her side. This act of impossible, selfless love is a key turning in a lock she never knew existed. Behind her, the world shifts. A wave of heat washes over her back, so intense it's like standing before an open furnace. A blinding, golden light erupts from behind her, pouring out of the cave mouth, bathing the entire clearing in an ethereal glow. Gideon cries out, shielding his eyes. "What? What is that?" Isadora feels a strange energy prickle over her skin, The ragged, pained breathing of the wolf behind her changes. It becomes a sharp gasp, then a groan of profound, human-sounding pain. She risks a glance over her shoulder. Her mind refuses to process what her eyes are seeing. The form of the great black wolf is dissolving, shimmering like a heat haze. Bones crack and reshape with audible, sickening sounds. Fur recedes into skin. The massive, lupine form collapses, elongating, changing, reforming. The light fades. And where the wounded wolf had stood, a man now lies sprawled on the stone floor of the cave. He is naked, his body lean and corded with muscle, littered with scars old and new. His dark hair matted with sweat and blood. A raw, bleeding gunshot wound weeps on his shoulder. The same place the wolf was shot. He pushes himself up onto one elbow, his head hanging. He lifts his face, and Isadora's breath is stolen from her lungs. It is a face of harsh, beautiful angles, of strength and pain. And his eyes? They are the same eyes. The same intelligent, soul-searing amber eyes that have watched over her for days. It's him. It's Zephyr. Gideon makes a choked, terrified sound. He drops the rifle as if it has burned him and stumbles backward, his face a mask of primal horror. The man, Zephyr, fixes his gaze on Gideon. His voice, when he speaks, is a low, guttural rumble she somehow recognizes, a sound that resonates deep within her chest. He will not touch you again. The world has fractured into a million glittering, unbelievable pieces. Gideon doesn't wait for a second invitation. He turns and flees, crashing through the undergrowth like a panicked animal, his whimpering cries fading into the distance. The one conscious guard stumbles after him, and then there is silence again. But this time, it is a ringing, supernaturally charged silence. Isadora stands frozen, her back to the man in the cave, her mind a maelstrom of shock and denial. It's not possible. It's a hallucination, a trick of the light and trauma. But the ragged breathing behind her is undeniably human. The smell of blood is sharp and real. Orion's crying has subsided into small, hiccuping sobs. Slowly, as if moving through deep water, she turns. He is still there. Real, solid, a man. He is trying to push himself into a sitting position, his face pale and tight with pain. The gunshot wound on his shoulder is bleeding freely, painting a stark crimson trail down his chest. Zephyr. The name feels both foreign and intimately familiar on her tongue. You, she breathes, the word failing to form properly. He meets her gaze, and the pain in his amber eyes is more than just physical. It is a deep, ancient agony, shame, regret. Isadora, hearing her name in his voice, this voice that is both new and old, is a shock that finally breaks her paralysis. She moves toward him, her legs unsteady. She kneels beside him on the cold stone, her ruined wedding dress pooling around her. The proximity to his nakedness should be alarming, but it isn't. She feels she knows this body. She has touched the fur that covered it, felt the heat of it, the strength. "You're hurt," she says, her voice a thin whisper. It's the only practical thought she can grasp onto in the swirling chaos of her mind. He looks down at his bleeding shoulder, then back at her. "It will heal." "You're a..." She can't say the word. Shifter. Werewolf. It belongs in stories, not in her life. He gives a short, harsh nod. I am the alpha of the Blackwood pack. His eyes drift to Orion, who is watching them with wide, curious eyes from his crib. Orion is my nephew, my brother, his mate. They were killed in an attack on our territory a month ago. Poachers. He is my charge now. It all falls into place, each impossible piece clicking together to form a picture that is still insane, but suddenly coherent. The intelligent eyes, the unnatural healing, the mysterious provisions. And me? She asks, her voice trembling. Why did you take me? A wave of something that looks like profound guilt washes over his features. He looks away from her, at the stone floor. I couldn't let the ceremony finish. I couldn't let you bind yourself to him. Why? She presses, needing to understand. He finally looks at her again, and the raw vulnerability in his gaze is devastating. In our world, some are connected, a bond that exists before we ever meet, an echo of one soul in another. We call it the anamkara, the soul friend, the soul mate. He takes a ragged breath. You are mine, Isadora. The words hang in the air between them. You are mine. It's not a statement of ownership like Gideon would say it. It's a statement of fact, a confession of a fundamental truth. It explains the pull she felt, the inexplicable sense of safety, the shocking current of connection when she touched him. I felt your pain, he continues, his voice low and raw. At your wedding, it was a scream in my soul. Your loneliness, your despair. He was killing you slowly, turning you into a ghost. I couldn't stand by and watch it happen, so I took you. It was a monstrous thing to do, a selfish thing, but it was the only thing I could think of. Isadora stares at him, her heart hammering. Kidnapped by her fated mate to save her from a loveless marriage. It's the plot of a mad fairy tale, but the proof is lying bleeding in front of her. She reaches out, her hand hovering over his wounded shoulder. The intimacy of the moment is overwhelming. Skin on skin. She presses a piece of her torn dress against the wound, applying pressure. He winces, hissing through his teeth, but doesn't pull away. The silence stretches. He is so close. The heat of his skin, the scent of him, ozone and pine, and something uniquely, elementally male. It's all so familiar. I'm a monster, Isadora, he says finally, his voice rough with self-loathing. I am not human. I am dangerous. I brought violence to your feet. You saw what I did. He tries to pull away from her, to put distance between them. You should go. When he's gone, you can go back. Tell them whatever you need to. You'll be safe. Go back? The words are incredulous, torn from her throat. Go back to what? The strength she found when she shielded him rushes back, hot and fierce. She meets his gaze, her own eyes blazing. Go back to being an asset, a decoration, a barren wife in a clean, empty house? Go back to being a ghost? She shakes her head, a vehement final motion. No. I'm not safe for you. He insists, his voice pained. Safe? She gives a short, hysterical laugh. Zephyr, I have never felt safer in my entire life than I have this past week in this cave with you. She leans closer, her face inches from his. A monster wouldn't have left warm milk for a baby. A monster wouldn't have brought blankets when I was cold. A monster wouldn't have let me tend its wounds. You are not a monster. Her voice drops to a whisper, fierce and certain. You are the only one who ever saw that I was drowning. You're the only one who bothered to jump in. Tears well in his amber eyes, glittering like jewels in the dim light. I've watched you for months. He confesses, his voice breaking. From the edge of the woods. I was drawn to you, to the light in you that you tried so hard to hide. I didn't understand it, but I couldn't stay away. I love you, Isadora. I think I have since the first moment I saw you. The confession hangs between them, a beautiful, terrifying truth. She starts, her own voice thick with unshed tears. I feel it too. A connection. I didn't have a name for it. I just knew that when you were near, I wasn't alone anymore. Orion makes a small noise from his crib, a soft coo. They both turn to look at him. He's watching them, his little face calm, his eyes moving between the two of them. He is the anchor in their storm, the reason they are here. The shared glance is a current of understanding, of shared responsibility, of a future. When Isadora turns back to Zephyr, the last of her fear is gone, replaced by a certainty that is as deep and wild as the forest around them. Don't you dare push me away, she whispers. Don't you dare tell me to go back to a life that was never mine. My life is here, with you, with Orion. She leans in, closing the small distance between them. She frames his face with her hands, her touch gentle but firm. Do you understand? He just stares at her, his expression one of awe and disbelief, as if he is looking at a miracle. He gives a slow, shaky nod, and then she kisses him. It's not a kiss of passion, not yet. It is a kiss of sealing, a kiss of acceptance, a kiss that says, I see you, I choose you, all of you. His lips are soft, hesitant at first. Then they respond to hers, a gentle pressure that speaks of reverence, of a longing so deep it has shaped his very existence. It is a kiss that tastes of blood and tears and wood smoke. It is the kiss of coming home. 6 months later. The world is green and gold, bathed in the soft light of a late autumn afternoon. Isadora sits on the porch of a small, sturdy wooden cabin, her back against a warm log wall. The air smells of pine needles, drying leaves, and the distant promise of snow. She wears simple wool trousers and a soft, worn tunic, clothes made for living, not for being looked at. Her hair is loose, falling over her shoulders. She is tracing the rim of a warm mug of herbal tea, watching Orion. He is a toddler now, unsteady on his feet, his dark hair a wild mop. He chases a butterfly across the grass, his laughter a bright, happy sound that echoes in the quiet clearing. When he stumbles and falls, as he often does, a tiny pair of fuzzy black wolf ears pops out from his hair for a second in surprise before vanishing again. Isadora smiles. The casual magic of this place has become the beautiful, ordinary rhythm of her life. This cabin is their home. It's one of a dozen others nestled in a hidden valley, a thriving community that has welcomed her not with suspicion, but with a quiet, profound respect. They don't call her the human or the outsider. They call her the Alphys's heart, the woman whose compassion had anchored their alpha, the woman who had shielded him with her own body. Her past life feels like a dream, a half-remembered story about someone else. Sometimes news from that world trickles in. One of the pack who works in a nearby town had mentioned an article. Gideon Vance, the disgraced political hopeful, his career in ruins after a public breakdown, his frantic, unbelievable story about his fiancée's abduction by monsters becoming a punchline in the national news. He'd lost everything. His funding, his reputation, his perfectly curated future. Isadora felt nothing hearing it. Not satisfaction, not anger. Just a faint, distant pity for a man so trapped in his own gilded cage that he couldn't recognize a miracle when it was right in front of him. A pair of strong arms wrap around her from behind. A warm chest presses against her back. Zephyr. He rests his chin on her shoulder, his breath warm against her neck. He no longer looks like the haunted, wounded man from the cave. He is still scarred, still powerful, but the pain in his eyes has been replaced by a deep, steady calm, by happiness. He's getting fast, Zephyr murmurs, his voice a low rumble against her ear as he watches his nephew. He gets it from his uncle, she replies, leaning her head back against his shoulder. They held a ceremony a month ago. Not a wedding of contracts and assets, but a bonding. It was simple, held under a full moon by the lake. The whole pack was there. They'd clasped hands, and the pack elder had spoken of the Anamkara, of two souls finding their other half across worlds. There was no ownership in the words, only unity, balance, belonging. What are you thinking about? Zephyr asks, his thumb stroking her arm. She turns her head to look at him. His amber eyes are soft, filled with a love so potent it still makes her breath catch. I was thinking about how strange it is, she says softly. My whole life I felt wrong, broken. My inability to have children, this deep, aching empathy that everyone saw as a weakness, a vulnerability. I felt like I was flawed. She looks back at Orion, who has now abandoned the butterfly in favor of trying to stack two rocks. He is her son in every way that matters. She is his mother. But it wasn't a flaw, she continues, her voice filled with a quiet sense of wonder. It was a compass. My grief, my empathy, it was all pointing me here, to you, to him. The thing I thought was my greatest weakness was actually the only strength that mattered. It was the key. Zephyr tightens his arms around her, pressing a kiss to her temple. It was never a weakness, Isadora. It was your power. It's the power that saved me. Orion lets out a triumphant squeal, having successfully placed one rock on top of the other. He looks over at them, his face beaming, seeking their approval. Isadora's heart swells. Zephyr's arms around her. Orion's happy shout filling the air. The smell of the wild, untamed forest that was once a place of terror and was now the most profound sanctuary. This was not the life she had been resigned to. This was better. It was real and wild and messy and so full of love it felt like it might burst from her chest. She was not a fragile, barren bride in a sterile ballroom. She was a queen in her own wild kingdom. She was home.